I arrived at my son's house for Christmas, but he said, "Who invited you? Old woman, this is only for family leave." I calmly left, but the next morning I'm glad you're here with me. Please like this video and listen to my story till the end and let me know which city you're listening from. That way, I can see how far my story has traveled. For 23 years, I believed I had done everything right. My name is Margaret Anderson, and I raised my son David alone after my husband died when David was only 5. I worked 2 jobs, morning shifts at the hospital as a nurse, evenings cleaning offices, to put him through college. I never remarried. David was my entire world, my reason to wake up every morning, my pride and joy. When David graduated from medical school and became a successful cardiologist, I felt I could finally breathe. He married Jennifer, a real estate agent 5 years ago. At first, she seemed pleasant enough, polite, proper, always smiling. But over time, I noticed something shifting. The weekly phone calls became monthly. The invitations to Sunday dinners stopped. When I asked David about it, he'd say, "Mom, we're just so busy, you understand, right?" I understood. Or at least I tried to. Last Christmas season felt different. I hadn't seen my son in 4 months. When I called to ask about Christmas plans, Jennifer answered. "Oh, Margaret," she said in that sweet, cold voice of hers, "we're keeping it small this year, just immediate family." "But I am immediate family," I said, confused. "We'll call you on Christmas Day," she replied, and hung up. Something twisted in my chest, but I pushed it down, told myself I was being paranoid, oversensitive. David was my son. Surely he wouldn't exclude his own mother from Christmas. 2 days before Christmas, I decided to drive to their house anyway. I baked David's favorite, apple pie with cinnamon, the recipe his grandmother taught me. I bought gifts for my 2 grandchildren, Emma and Jake, 8 and 6 years old. Children I barely knew anymore because visits had become so rare. The drive took 3 hours. Snow was falling gently, making everything look like a postcard. Their house, a beautiful 2-story colonial I'd helped with the down payment, glowed with warm lights and Christmas decorations. I could see the tree through the window, wrapped presents underneath, stockings hung on the mantel. I rang the doorbell, holding my pie, my heart full of hope. David opened the door. His face, oh God, his face, went from surprise to something darker. Annoyance? Anger? "Mom? What are you doing here?" "I came for Christmas, sweetheart. I brought your favorite pie and—" "Who invited you?" His voice was sharp, cutting. I stood there, frozen, snow melting on my shoulders. Jennifer appeared behind him, her expression carefully neutral. "David, what's—" "Oh, Margaret, I'm your mother," I said quietly, looking at my son. "I thought, this is for family only," David said. Behind him, I could see Emma and Jake peeking around the corner, watching with wide eyes. "We talked about boundaries, Mom. You can't just show up uninvited." "Since when do I need an invitation to see my own son at Christmas?" Jennifer placed her hand on David's shoulder, a gesture of ownership. "Margaret, we've asked you to respect our space. We have our own traditions now, our own family unit." "I'm his mother," I repeated, my voice cracking. Was I really standing here, arguing for the right to be part of my son's life? David's jaw tightened. "You need to leave, now. This is embarrassing." The word hit me like a slap. Embarrassing. His mother was embarrassing. "David, please. Get out, old woman. This is family time, and you're not welcome." The door slammed in my face. I stood there in the snow, holding my apple pie, staring at the wreath on their door. Inside, I could hear Christmas music playing. Laughter. My grandchildren asking, "Daddy, who was that?" I don't remember walking back to my car. I don't remember the drive home, but I remember sitting in my dark, cold house that night, staring at the small Christmas tree I'd decorated alone, and feeling something inside me break. And then, slowly, something else took its place. Not sadness, not grief. Something colder, harder, more determined. By morning, I knew exactly what I had to do. Christmas morning, I woke up at 5 a.m., the way I'd done for 40 years of nursing shifts, but I had nowhere to go. The house was silent except for the ticking clock in the kitchen. I made coffee and sat at my kitchen table, the same table where I'd helped David with his homework, where we'd celebrated his acceptance to medical school, where I'd cried the night my husband died. What had just happened? I pulled out a notepad, an old habit from my nursing days when documentation meant everything, and started writing. Facts, not emotions. Facts. Fact 1. David and Jennifer had deliberately excluded me from Christmas. Fact 2. This wasn't the first time. It had been escalating for 2 years. Fact 3. I had no legal right to see my grandchildren. None. Fact 4. I'd given David $60,000 for his house down payment. Never asked for it back. Fact 5. I'd co-signed his medical school loans, paid off $15,000 when he struggled. Fact 6. I was still listed as emergency contact for the children at school. Jennifer had forgotten to change it. That last one made me pause. I went to my filing cabinet. Yes, I kept files, organized by year, and pulled out documents. Birthday cards I'd sent that were never acknowledged. Emails I'd written that received one-word responses. Text messages where I begged for photos of the grandchildren. And then I found it. The document I'd almost forgotten about. 5 years ago, when David and Jennifer bought their house, I didn't just give them money. I'd been added to the deed as a part owner, 10% because the bank required more collateral for the mortgage. It was supposed to be temporary. David said he'd remove me once they refinanced. They never did. I stared at that document for a long time. My hands were shaking. Was I really considering this? What was I considering exactly? I thought about last night. The look on David's face. Get out, old woman. The door slamming. My grandchildren watching their father treat their grandmother like garbage. What kind of man had I raised? No, that wasn't fair. I'd raised a good man. A kind boy who brought me dandelions and drew me pictures. Something had changed him. Someone had changed him. Jennifer. I'd watched it happen slowly. The way she'd gently correct him when he talked about visiting me too often. The way she'd roll her eyes when I called. The subtle comments about codependent relationships and healthy boundaries and nuclear family units. She'd isolated him, systematically, carefully. And David, wanting to be a good husband, had let her. Or maybe that was too simple. Maybe David wanted distance too. Maybe I'd been too much, too clingy, too... No, I stopped that thought. I'd been a mother, a good mother. I'd sacrificed everything for him, and that wasn't wrong. Loving your child isn't a character flaw. I picked up my phone and called my friend Rita, a retired family lawyer. Rita, it's Margaret. I need advice. I told her everything. When I finished, there was a long silence. Margaret, honey, you have options. That house situation, you have legal standing. And if they're deliberately alienating you from your grandchildren without cause, you might have grounds for grandparent visitation rights in your state. I don't want to sue my son, I whispered. Then what do you want? What did I want? I wanted my son back. I wanted respect. I wanted my grandchildren to know their grandmother. I wanted to stop feeling invisible, disposable, like garbage left on the curb. I want them to understand they can't treat me this way, I said slowly. I want accountability. Then you need leverage, Rita said. And from what you've told me, you have it. That house deed is significant. I'd start there. Let me do some research and I'll call you back. After we hung up, I sat very still. Was I really doing this? Planning some kind of, what? Revenge? No, not revenge. Justice. Boundaries. Consequences. They wanted to treat me like I didn't matter. Fine. I'd show them exactly how much I mattered. I opened my laptop and started taking notes. By evening, I had the skeleton of a plan. Step 1, document everything. Step 2, secure my legal position. Step 3, force a conversation they couldn't ignore. My hands were steady now. The crying was done. Tomorrow I would begin. The day after Christmas, I drove to Rita's office. She'd reviewed my documents and had news. Margaret, this is actually more substantial than I thought. You own 10% of their house. They can't sell without your signature. They can't refinance without your approval. And legally, they should have been declaring you as a co-owner on their taxes. Which they haven't, I said. It wasn't a question. Which means they've potentially committed tax fraud, though I'd need to verify that with their returns. Rita leaned forward. But here's what matters. You have leverage. Real leverage. The question is how you want to use it. I want a meeting, a real conversation. I want them to explain to my face why I'm not welcome in my son's life. And if they refuse, then I'll exercise my legal rights regarding the property. Rita smiled grimly. Let me draft a letter, attorney to attorney, professional, but firm. 3 days later, the letter was sent via certified mail to David and Jennifer's home address and to David's hospital office. It outlined my legal position regarding the property and formally requested a family meeting within 2 weeks to discuss ongoing concerns regarding family relationships and legal obligations. I didn't have to wait 2 weeks. David called me at 11 p.m. that same day, his voice shaking with rage. What the hell is this, Mom? A legal letter? Are you threatening us? I'm requesting a conversation, David. You slammed a door in my face at Christmas. You won't take my calls. What else was I supposed to do? This is blackmail. No, this is me reminding you that I exist, that I have rights, that I'm your mother. You're insane, he hissed. Jennifer was right about you. You're controlling and manipulative and… Then prove it's not true, I said calmly. My heart was racing, but my voice stayed level. Years of dealing with crisis situations in the ER had taught me that. Meet with me. Explain your side. If I'm being unreasonable, show me how. We don't owe you anything. You owe me $60,000 for the house down payment? You owe me for the loans I co-signed. But that's not what this is about. This is about basic human decency, David. I'm your mother. He hung up. I sat in my dark kitchen, hands trembling. Had I just destroyed what was left of my relationship with my son? But 2 days later, Rita called. Margaret, Jennifer's attorney responded. They've agreed to a meeting next Monday, 10 a.m., at their attorney's office. They're calling it a mediation session. They got an attorney? That's how you know you hit a nerve. Rita paused. Margaret, are you sure about this? Once we enter formal mediation, things will escalate. There's no going back to how things were. How things were? I laughed bitterly. Rita, there's nothing to go back to. They already cut me out. I'm just refusing to disappear quietly. Monday morning, I dressed carefully. Professional. Dignified. Navy blue suit. Pearl earrings my mother gave me. I arrived early at the attorney's office in downtown. David and Jennifer were already there, sitting with their lawyer, a young man in an expensive suit who looked fresh out of law school. They didn't look at me when I entered. Jennifer wore a cream-colored dress and had her blonde hair pulled back severely. She looked like she was attending a funeral. Maybe she was. The funeral of her carefully constructed narrative that I didn't matter. David looked exhausted, dark circles under his eyes. He still wouldn't meet my gaze. The mediation began with introductions. Their attorney, his name was Bradley, spoke first. Mrs. Anderson, my clients are willing to discuss a financial settlement to remove you from the property deed. They're prepared to offer fair market value for your 10% stake, plus reasonable compensation for any loans or gifts you provided during— No, I said. Bradley blinked. I'm sorry? I'm not here to negotiate money. I'm here because I want to understand why my son won't let me see my grandchildren. Why I was humiliated on Christmas. Why I've been erased from his life. Jennifer leaned forward, her voice saccharine. Margaret, this isn't about erasing you. It's about healthy boundaries. David and I have built our own family unit, and we need space to— Space from what? From the woman who raised him alone? Who worked myself to exhaustion so he could become a doctor? You're emotionally manipulative, Jennifer said, her mask slipping slightly. You use guilt to control David. You've done it his whole life. We're protecting our children from that toxic dynamic. The words hung in the air. There it was, the truth I'd been waiting for. Toxic, I repeated softly. David, is that what you think? That I'm toxic? Finally, he looked at me, and in his eyes, I saw something that broke my heart all over again. Guilt? Shame. But also, agreement. Mom, you have to understand. Jennifer's helped me see patterns. The way you made everything about your sacrifices. The way you made me responsible for your happiness. I loved you, I whispered. Too much, Jennifer interjected. You loved him too much, and now you need to let him go. I stood up slowly. Rita put her hand on my arm, warning me, but I was calm, perfectly calm. No, I said. I don't think I will. I looked at Bradley. My attorney will be in touch regarding my legal options concerning the property and grandparent visitation rights. This meeting is over. As I walked out, I heard Jennifer's voice, no longer sweet. She's going to regret this. Good. Let them worry. The war had officially begun. Rita filed the paperwork within 48 hours. 2 separate legal actions. First, a formal petition for grandparent visitation rights based on established prior relationship with Emma and Jake. Second, a notice that I was exercising my rights as a property co-owner and would need to approve any major financial decisions regarding the house. This will get their attention, Rita said. And Margaret, prepare yourself. It's going to get ugly. She was right. The first call came from David at 6 a.m., 3 days after we filed. Mom, you need to stop this. Now. Jennifer she's devastated. The kids are confused. You're tearing our family apart. I'm tearing it apart? My voice was ice. David, I wasn't invited to Christmas. I'm not allowed to see my grandchildren. How exactly am I the one doing the tearing? If you don't drop these legal actions, we'll get a restraining order. We'll tell the judge you're unstable, harassing us. Go ahead, I said quietly. I have documentation of every attempt I made to maintain contact, every unanswered call, every ignored text, every birthday card I sent to children I'm not allowed to see. Take me to court, David. Let a judge see what you've done. He hung up, but the real attack came 2 days later. I was at the grocery store when my phone rang. Unknown number. Mrs. Anderson, this is Principal Martinez from Riverside Elementary. I'm calling because we've received a formal request from Mr. and Mrs. Hartwell, David and Jennifer, to remove you from Emma and Jake's emergency contact list. They've also indicated that under no circumstances should you be allowed to pick up the children or have any contact with them on school grounds. My hand tightened on the shopping cart. They've also filed a formal complaint, the principal continued, her voice uncomfortable, stating that you've been attempting to access the children without parental permission, and that this constitutes a safety concern. That's a lie, I said. I have never once attempted to pick up those children without permission. I've barely seen them in 2 years. I understand this is a difficult family situation, but without a court order granting you visitation rights, we have to respect the parents' wishes. I'm sorry. After she hung up, I stood in the middle of the cereal aisle, shaking. They were isolating me completely, making me look dangerous, unstable. But then my phone buzzed, a text from a number I didn't recognize. Mrs. Anderson? This is Melissa Chen, Emma's 3rd grade teacher. I know I shouldn't be reaching out, but I want you to know that Emma talks about you all the time. She draws pictures of you. She asked me why her grandmother doesn't come to her birthday parties anymore. I don't know what's happening in your family, but those children love you. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise. I stood there in the grocery store and cried. Then I forwarded that text to Rita. This is good, Rita said when I called her. Witnesses to the children's affection for you. Character witnesses. We can use this. Over the next week, David and Jennifer's campaign intensified. They called my neighbors, telling them I was unstable and obsessed. They posted vague messages on social media about toxic family members and protecting your children from manipulation. Jennifer's friends, women I'd met at birthday parties who I'd been friendly with, blocked me on Facebook. But I didn't break. Instead, I documented everything, screenshots, saved voicemails, recorded the threatening calls, legal in my state with one-party consent. Built my case brick by brick. And then, one evening, David showed up at my house. He looked terrible, exhausted, defeated. Mom, please, he said, standing on my doorstep. Please drop this. She's talking about moving, taking the kids to another state where you can't file for visitation. She says if you don't stop, she'll make sure I never see you again either. So she's threatening you too now? I said softly. He flinched. David, when did you stop being your own person? When did her wants become more important than what's right? You don't understand how hard she can make my life. No, I interrupted. You don't understand how hard you've made mine. But here's what's going to happen. I'm not dropping anything. If Jennifer wants to move, that's her choice. But she'll have to explain to a judge why she's fleeing the state to avoid a grandmother's legal visitation petition. That won't look good. You're destroying everything, he whispered. No, sweetheart, I'm trying to save it, but you can't see that yet. He left. And for the first time in weeks, they went quiet. No calls, no texts, no social media posts. Rita said it was strategy. They're regrouping, planning their next move. Be ready. But for now, I had a reprieve. I took 3 days off from the stress. I went to my church group where people who actually knew me hugged me and told me they were praying for me. I had coffee with Rita and laughed for the first time in weeks. I slept through the night. I was ready for whatever came next. The call came on a Sunday morning, 2 weeks after David's last visit. It was Jennifer, and her voice was completely different, soft, warm, almost tearful. Margaret, it's Jennifer. Please don't hang up. I almost did. But curiosity stopped me. I'm listening. I need to apologize. I've been terrible to you. Truly terrible. I've been thinking about everything, about Christmas, about how we've treated you, and I'm ashamed. She paused, and I heard what sounded like a sob. David and I have been under so much stress. His work, the kids, money problems. I took it out on you, and that wasn't fair. You've only ever tried to help us. Money problems. Interesting. Rita had mentioned they'd been trying to refinance the house for months. presumably to access equity they needed. They couldn't do that without my signature. What do you want, Jennifer? I want to make this right. I want the kids to know their grandmother. I want to be a family again. Could we try? Could you come for dinner this Friday? The kids would be so excited. It was a good performance. I'll give her that. And in exchange? I asked calmly. In exchange? Her voice faltered slightly. Jennifer, let's not play games. You want something. What is it? A pause. Then, her voice still sweet, but with steel underneath. We need to refinance the house, Margaret. The legal complications with you on the deed they're causing problems. If you could just sign the paperwork to remove yourself, we'd compensate you fairly, and then we can all move forward. Fresh start. There it is. Margaret, please, for the family, for Emma and Jake. Don't you want to see them? Of course I want to see them, but not like this. Not as a transaction where I sign away my legal standing in exchange for scraps of access to my own grandchildren. You're being unreasonable. No, Jennifer, I'm being clear. You want me gone from that deed because it gives me power you don't like. Well, that power is the only thing preventing you from erasing me completely. So no, I'm not signing anything. You're making a mistake, she said, and now the warmth was completely gone. You have no idea what David and I are capable of. Actually, I'm starting to get a pretty good idea. She hung up. 3 days later, a different approach. An envelope arrived at my house, hand-delivered. Inside was a letter, handwritten in Emma's childish scrawl. Dear Grandma, I miss you so much. Mommy says you're sick, and that's why you can't visit. Are you okay? I made you a drawing. I hope you feel better soon. I love you. Emma attached was a crayon drawing of a little girl and an older woman holding hands, with a rainbow overhead. I stood in my kitchen, holding that letter, and felt my resolve waver. They were using my granddaughter, using her innocence as a weapon. I called Rita immediately. They gave Emma a false narrative to manipulate me, I said, my voice shaking. They told an 8-year-old that I'm too sick to visit. Now she's worried about me, and they're using her concern as emotional leverage. That's actually helpful for our case, Rita said grimly. It shows parental alienation, lying to children about the other family member. Document this. Keep the letter safe. I wrote back to Emma, a carefully worded letter that Rita reviewed first, nothing that could be used against me, telling her I loved her, that I wasn't sick, and that I hoped to see her soon. I sent it to the school, addressed to Emma's teacher, Mrs. Chen, with a note asking if she could possibly give it to Emma privately. She did, and she texted me later. Emma was so happy. She asked if she could write you back. But Jennifer found out. Mrs. Chen was reprimanded by the principal for interfering in a family dispute. The manipulation attempts continued. David's friends started calling me, people I'd known for years, telling me I should be reasonable, that I was pushing David to a breakdown, that family should forgive and move on. But I'd found my own support system. My church group rallied around me. Pastor Williams, who'd known me for 30 years, offered to write a character witness letter for the court. Women from my book club, from my volunteer work at the hospital, from my neighborhood, they all reached out. We've seen you with those children, my neighbor Dorothy said firmly. We know what kind of grandmother you are. Don't you dare let them gaslight you into thinking you're the problem. I attended a support group for alienated grandparents and found 12 other people fighting similar battles. We shared strategies, lawyer recommendations, encouragement. I wasn't alone, and with each day, my resolve hardened like steel. Jennifer and David wanted me to break? To give in? To trade my dignity for scraps? Never. They came on a Thursday evening, unannounced. I was reading in my living room when I heard the car pull up. Through the window, I saw David and Jennifer walking up the path, together, united front, determined expressions. I opened the door before they could knock. "Margaret," David said, his voice carefully controlled. "We need to talk. Can we come in?" Every instinct screamed at me to say no, but I stepped aside. They entered my home, the home I'd raised David in, like strangers inspecting enemy territory. Jennifer's eyes swept the living room, taking in the family photos on the walls, the worn furniture, the knitted blankets I'd made years ago. "Coffee?" I offered, my voice neutral. "This isn't a social visit," Jennifer said, sitting on my couch without invitation. David remained standing, arms crossed. "Then what is it?" "It's an intervention," Jennifer said. "Margaret, we're worried about you. This obsessive behavior, this legal harassment, it's not healthy. We think you need help." I sat down slowly in my chair. "Help." "Therapy," David said quickly. "Mom, you're fixated on us, on the kids. It's not normal. Jennifer and I have discussed it with a family therapist, and she agrees that your behavior shows signs of—" "Let me guess," I interrupted. "Your therapist, who's only heard your version of events, thinks I'm the problem." "She thinks you need professional support to work through your attachment issues," Jennifer said smoothly. "And we're prepared to help you get that support. We've even researched some excellent programs for—" "For what? For women who dare to expect their sons to treat them with basic respect?" "For women who can't let go," Jennifer snapped, her composure cracking slightly. "David is a grown man with his own family. You need to accept that." "I do accept that. What I don't accept is being thrown away like garbage because it's convenient for you." David stepped forward. "Mom, if you drop the legal actions, all of them, we'll agree to supervised visits. Once a month, maybe. At our house, with us present. You could see Emma and Jake." "Supervised," I repeated, "like I'm dangerous." "Like we're setting healthy boundaries," Jennifer corrected. "And in exchange, you sign off on the house deed, you drop the visitation petition, and we all move forward. It's a fair compromise. A compromise where I give up everything and you give up nothing. You get to see your grandchildren." David's voice rose. "Isn't that what you wanted?" "I want what I've earned, David. Respect. Access to my grandchildren without permission from gatekeepers. Recognition that I matter." Jennifer stood abruptly. "This is pointless. I told you she wouldn't be reasonable, David. She's too far gone." "Far gone?" I stood as well. "Jennifer, let's be honest about what's really happening here. You want me to sign away my legal stake in your house so you can refinance and access money you desperately need. This isn't about boundaries or my mental health. This is about your financial problems." Her face flushed. "How dare you? How dare I what? State facts? David, does Jennifer know I've been tracking your financial situation? The credit card debt, the second mortgage you tried to get denied, the country club membership you can't really afford?" David's face went pale. "You've been spying on us?" "Public records, David. All public records. And what I see is a couple living beyond their means, desperate to access home equity and willing to manipulate a grandmother to get what they need." Jennifer's mask shattered completely, her face contorted with rage. "You spiteful old bitch! You can't stand that David chose me over you, that he built a life that doesn't revolve around you. You've been trying to control him since the day he was born, and now that you can't, you're punishing all of us." "Jennifer," David said, warning in his voice, but she ignored him. "You think you're going to win this? You think a judge will side with you?" She stepped closer, and I saw genuine fury in her eyes. "We have money. We have lawyers. We have a perfect family narrative. You're a lonely old woman with nothing but time to obsess over people who don't want you. We will destroy you in court. Jennifer, stop. David reached for her arm. She shook him off. No, she needs to hear this. Margaret, if you don't drop everything, and I mean everything, by next week, we're filing for a restraining order. We'll claim harassment, stalking, threats. We'll make sure you never get within 100 yards of those children, and David will testify against you. Won't you, David? She turned to him, expectant. David looked at me, then at Jennifer, then back at me. And in that moment, I saw my son's soul, torn, weak, trapped. Won't you? Jennifer repeated, her voice sharp. Yes, he whispered. Yes, I will. Something inside me broke and reformed simultaneously. The last tiny hope that David would stand up to her, that he would choose right over easy. It died. But in its place came something stronger. Certainty. Get out of my house, I said quietly. You'll regret this, Jennifer hissed. No, you will. They left, Jennifer's heels clicking furiously down my front steps, David following like a shadow. I stood in my living room, shaking. Fear coursed through me. Real, physical fear. They had money, lawyers, a united front. What did I have? But then I looked around my small home, at the pictures of David as a child, laughing, happy, held safely in my arms, at the life I'd built through sheer determination and love. I'd raised a child alone. I'd worked 2 jobs. I'd survived my husband's death, poverty, exhaustion, loneliness. I'd survived everything life had thrown at me. I could survive this too, and more than that. I would win. The hearing was scheduled for 2 weeks later. A preliminary hearing to determine whether my petition for grandparent visitation had merit to proceed to full trial. Rita had prepared me thoroughly. They're going to paint you as obsessive, unstable, inappropriate, she'd said. Stay calm. Let them overplay their hand. Answer questions simply. Don't get emotional. I wore the same navy suit I'd worn to the first mediation. Pearl earrings, hair neat. I looked like what I was, a dignified grandmother fighting for her grandchildren. David and Jennifer arrived with their attorney, Bradley, and 2 character witnesses, Jennifer's mother and Jennifer's best friend, a woman named Stacy. The judge was a woman in her 50s, Judge Patricia Morrison. She had kind eyes, but a stern expression. Bradley went first, painting his picture. Your Honor, this is a clear case of an overbearing mother-in-law who refuses to respect reasonable boundaries established by the parents. Mrs. Anderson has engaged in harassment, manipulation, and legal intimidation against my clients. She's using her position as a co-owner on their property deed, a position she gained through deceptive means, to leverage access to grandchildren whose parents have determined her influence is unhealthy. Deceptive means? Rita stood. Your Honor, Mrs. Anderson was added to the deed at the bank's requirement as collateral. That's documented in standard practice. Bradley continued. Mrs. Anderson has sent unwanted communications, attempted to contact the children through their school against the parents' wishes, and has created a hostile environment for this family. The children are confused and upset by her actions. Then came the witnesses. Jennifer's mother testified that I'd always been controlling and possessive of David, that she'd witnessed me making David feel guilty about spending time with his own wife. I watched, expressionless. Jennifer's friend Stacy testified that Jennifer had confided in her about my inappropriate behavior, including showing up uninvited at their home and refusing to leave. We didn't refuse to let her leave, Rita murmured to me. They refused to let you enter. Different story. Then Jennifer took the stand. She was good, tears at just the right moments, voice trembling when describing how scared Emma had been when I'd allegedly caused a scene at Christmas. We just want peace, Your Honor. We want to protect our children from this toxic situation. Margaret refuses to accept that we have the right to set boundaries for our own family. Bradley sat down, looking satisfied. Then it was our turn. Rita called me to the stand. I walked up calmly, took the oath, sat down. Rita's questions were straightforward. How long since I'd seen my grandchildren? When was I last invited to a family event? Had I ever been threatening or inappropriate? I answered simply, factually. No emotion, just truth. Mrs. Anderson, can you describe what happened on Christmas Eve when you arrived at your son's home? I recounted it exactly as it happened. The pie, the gifts, David's face, the door slamming. And Mr. Hartwell's exact words? He called me old woman and said, "This is for family only," and told me to get out. I saw David flinch. Jennifer's hand gripped his arm tightly. Rita introduced evidence. The text messages I'd sent that were ignored. Birthday cards I'd mailed to the children. Photos of Emma and Jake's artwork they'd made for me in previous years, before contact was cut off. Mrs. Chen's text message about Emma asking about me. Then Rita called Mrs. Chen as a witness. She'd agreed to testify despite the risk to her job. Mrs. Chen, in your professional opinion as a third-grade teacher, what is Emma Hartwell's relationship with her grandmother? Emma loves her grandmother very much. She talks about her constantly. She draws pictures of her. She's asked me multiple times why her grandmother stopped visiting. When I gave her a letter from her grandmother, which I probably shouldn't have done, she was overjoyed. And did the parents give Emma any explanation for why her grandmother wasn't visiting? Yes. Emma told me her parents said her grandmother was too sick to visit. But Emma was confused because if her grandmother was sick, why couldn't they visit her instead? Bradley stood. Objection, Your Honor. Hearsay from a child goes to the issue of parental alienation, Rita countered. The child's perception of the situation is relevant. Judge Morrison nodded. I'll allow it. Continue. Rita entered the letter Emma had written me into evidence. Then she played her final card. Your Honor, I'd like to introduce a recording of a phone conversation between Mrs. Anderson and Mrs. Jennifer Hartwell, dated 2 weeks ago. California is a one-party consent state, and Mrs. Anderson informed Mrs. Hartwell at the beginning of the call that it was being recorded. Objection. Bradley jumped up. We weren't informed of this recording. It was disclosed in discovery 2 days ago, Rita said calmly. You received notice. Judge Morrison looked at Bradley. Did you receive notice? He shuffled papers. We may have... Play the recording, the judge said. Rita pressed play. Jennifer's voice filled the courtroom. Smooth at first, then progressively more aggressive. The intervention conversation. Her demands, her threats. We will destroy you in court, lonely old woman. You'll never get within 100 yards of those children. David will testify against you, won't you, David? The courtroom was silent. Jennifer's face had gone white. David looked like he wanted to disappear. We have 2 more recordings, Rita said quietly. Would you like to hear them? That won't be necessary, Judge Morrison said. Her expression had changed completely. She looked at Jennifer and David. Mrs. Hartwell, Mr. Hartwell, I'd like to hear your explanation for this conversation. Jennifer started to speak, stopped, started again. That was taken out of context. We were trying to... She couldn't finish the sentence. David said nothing, just stared at his hands. Judge Morrison looked at me. Mrs. Anderson, what is it you're asking for? Access to my grandchildren, Your Honor. Not custody, not decision-making power, just to be their grandmother, to see them, to know them, to love them. The judge was quiet for a long moment. Then she spoke. I'm granting temporary visitation pending a full hearing. Mrs. Anderson will have supervised visitation, supervised by a court-appointed mediator Not by the parents, twice a month for 3 hours. We'll reconvene in 60 days to assess the situation. She looked at David and Jennifer. And I strongly suggest you both consider family therapy. What I heard on that recording concerns me greatly. It wasn't everything, but it was a start. The first supervised visit took place in a neutral location, a family services building with a trained mediator named Susan. Emma and Jake were brought by David, who looked like he hadn't slept in days. He couldn't meet my eyes as the children ran to me. "Grandma!" Emma hugged me fiercely. Jake, shyer, hung back at first, then joined in. "I missed you so much," Emma said. "Mommy said you were sick, but you look okay now." "I'm fine, sweetheart. I'm so happy to see you." We spent 3 hours together, playing games, reading, talking. Susan observed quietly, taking notes. At the end, both children were crying, not wanting to leave. "Can Grandma come to my birthday party?" Emma asked David. "Please, Daddy." David looked broken. "We'll see, honey." Susan's report to the judge was glowing. The children clearly have a strong, healthy bond with their grandmother. There was no evidence of inappropriate behavior or manipulation. In my professional opinion, denying these children access to their grandmother serves no protective purpose and causes them emotional harm. The full hearing came 6 weeks later. This time, Jennifer and David had a different strategy. Jennifer's attorney argued that I should have to pay for the supervised visits, that the financial burden was unfair, that they were willing to allow visits but only on their terms and their schedule. But they'd made a critical mistake. In the weeks between hearings, David's hospital had conducted an internal review. Someone had filed a complaint about his treatment of staff. Jennifer's real estate license was under investigation for ethical violations, and their mortgage company, discovering the complications with my name on the deed, had flagged their refinancing application as potentially fraudulent, since they'd failed to disclose the co-owner situation. Rita had nothing to do with any of it. Sometimes, she'd told me privately, people who build their lives on manipulation eventually manipulate the wrong person. At the hearing, Judge Morrison was no longer patient. "I've reviewed the case file extensively," she said. "I've read the reports, I've listened to the recordings, and I've observed something troubling, a pattern of parental alienation, financial manipulation, and dishonesty. Mr. and Mrs. Hartwell, you've used your children as pawns in a power struggle with their grandmother. That ends now." She ruled comprehensively, unsupervised visitation for me, every other weekend, holidays to be shared, summers to include 2 weeks with me. Family therapy mandated for David, Jennifer, and the children. All costs related to previous supervised visits to be reimbursed to me by David and Jennifer. And finally, regarding the property deed issue, Mrs. Anderson's position as co-owner is legally valid and will remain in place until such time as she voluntarily chooses to relinquish it. Any attempt to remove her without her consent will be considered contempt of court. Jennifer stood up, furious. "This is insane! She's manipulated everyone. Mrs. Hartwell, sit down," the judge said coldly. "One more outburst, and I'll hold you in contempt." Jennifer sat, shaking with rage. Outside the courtroom, David finally approached me. "Mom, He couldn't continue. His face crumpled. "I'm so sorry. I don't know how it got this bad. I don't know how I let her." "Manipulate you into abandoning your mother?" I said quietly. "Into using your children as leverage? Into becoming someone unrecognizable?" He nodded, tears streaming down his face. "David, I love you. I will always love you. But you have a lot of work to do. On yourself, on your marriage, on being the father Emma and Jake deserve. Can you forgive me? Ask me again in a year, after you've done the work." I walked away, leaving him standing there, Jennifer's reaction was more dramatic. She sent me a series of text messages that night, vicious, threatening, unhinged. Rita immediately filed them with the court as evidence of continued harassment. Within a month, Jennifer and David separated. David moved into an apartment. The marriage that had been built on united front against me couldn't survive when that front crumbled. Jennifer tried to use the separation to limit my access to the grandchildren. The judge denied her motion so fast it barely made it to the docket. 3 months after the final ruling, David came to my house. Alone. I filed for divorce, he said. I'm getting primary custody. Jennifer's, the therapist, helped me see how toxic she's been. To you, to the kids, to me. I made him coffee. We sat at my kitchen table. I'm in therapy 3 times a week, he continued. Learning about boundaries, about manipulation, about what a healthy relationship with you should look like. I know I destroyed that. I know I may never fully repair it. But you're trying, I said softly. I'm trying. It wasn't reconciliation, not yet, but it was a start. Emma and Jake stayed with me every other weekend. We baked cookies, we watched movies, we talked about everything. I love you, Grandma, Emma told me one night as I tucked her in. I love you too, sweetheart. I'm glad you didn't give up on us. I kissed her forehead. Never. A year later, my life looked completely different and remarkably better. Emma and Jake were permanent fixtures in my home every other weekend and half the summer. My small house filled with laughter again, with children's artwork on the refrigerator, with toys scattered across the living room floor. I taught Emma to bake my mother's apple pie recipe. Jake and I built a birdhouse together. We went to the zoo, to museums, to the park. David came too sometimes, slowly rebuilding the relationship we'd lost. The therapy was working. He was learning to stand on his own, to make decisions without fear of manipulation, to be present as a father and, tentatively, as a son again. I spent years being afraid of disappointing Jennifer, he told me one Sunday afternoon while the kids played in the yard. I didn't realize I was disappointing the people who actually mattered. You, Emma, Jake. Myself? You're doing better, I said. That's what counts. He was. He'd moved into a small but comfortable house near mine. He'd set better boundaries at work. He smiled more. The dark circles under his eyes had faded. My church community, my book club, my support group. They'd all rallied around me throughout the ordeal. Now they celebrated with me. I'd become something of a local hero among alienated grandparents, sharing my story at support group meetings, offering hope to others fighting similar battles. Rita and I remained close friends. You were the client who made it all worthwhile, she told me. Not every case ends with justice actually being served. I'd even started writing about my experience, contributing articles to online support forums for grandparents' rights. Messages flooded in from around the country. Grandparents thanking me for fighting, for showing them it was possible to win, for refusing to disappear. My life wasn't perfect, but it was mine. And it was good. Jennifer's life, by contrast, had imploded spectacularly. The divorce was bitter and expensive. She'd fought David for primary custody and lost. The judge had been unimpressed by her behavior throughout our case and sided with David's character transformation. She got Emma and Jake only every other weekend and supervised at first until she completed her mandated therapy. Her real estate career collapsed. The ethics investigation revealed she'd misrepresented property conditions to clients, manipulated listings to favor her own commissions, and violated confidentiality agreements. Her license was suspended for 2 years. Without David's income and without her career, Jennifer couldn't afford the house. She'd fought to keep it, fought viciously, but ultimately had to sell. And since I still owned 10%, I had to approve the sale and received my share of the proceeds. I donated half of it to a legal fund for grandparents' rights, kept the rest for Emma and Jake's college funds. Jennifer moved into a small apartment across town. Her social circle, the wealthy country club friends, the PTA power clique, evaporated. People who'd supported her version of events suddenly remembered they didn't want to get involved once the truth came out. She tried to continue spreading lies about me, but nobody listened anymore. The court records were public. People knew. I ran into her once at the grocery store. She looked older, harder, defeated. Our eyes met across the produce section. She turned and walked away quickly. I felt pity, not satisfaction, not joy, just sadness for a woman who'd destroyed her own life through bitterness and control. David told me she'd started therapy finally, real therapy, not the performance therapy she'd used to manipulate him. Her therapist told her she has narcissistic tendencies, he said. She called me raging about it, but maybe it's a start for her too. Maybe, but that wasn't my concern anymore. My concern was Emma showing me her spelling test. 100% with a gold star. My concern was Jake asking me to teach him to cook. My concern was planning David's birthday dinner, a small family gathering in my backyard, something we hadn't done in 5 years. "Grandma," Emma asked me one evening as we watched the sunset from my porch, "are you happy now?" I hugged her close. "Yes, sweetheart, I really am." "Good, because we love you so much." "I love you both too, more than anything." She nestled against me. "Daddy says you're the strongest person he knows, that you taught him what it means to fight for what matters." My eyes filled with tears. "Your daddy is learning to be strong too." The sun set over my small house, my small yard, my small but infinitely precious life. I'd fought, I'd won, not just legally, but morally, emotionally, completely. And it had been worth every battle, every tear, every sleepless night. Justice, I'd learned, doesn't always come quickly. But sometimes it comes perfectly. So that's my story. The story of how I refused to disappear quietly, how I fought for my place in my grandchildren's lives, and how I won. What did I learn? That love isn't always soft. Sometimes it's fierce. Sometimes it means standing your ground when everyone tells you to back down. Sometimes it means fighting legal battles and enduring accusations and refusing to be erased. I learned that boundaries work both ways. If someone can demand boundaries from you, you can demand respect in return. I learned that documentation, evidence, and cold facts matter more than emotional manipulation. And I learned that dignity is worth fighting for. Now I ask you, what would you have done in my position? Would you have walked away quietly when your son slammed the door? Would you have fought back? How far would you go to protect your relationship with your grandchildren? Leave a comment. Tell me your story. If you're fighting a similar battle, know that you're not alone. Thank you for listening to my journey. It wasn't easy to share, but if it helps even one grandparent find the courage to stand up for themselves, it was worth it. Subscribe for more stories of resilience, courage, and justice. Because everyone deserves to be heard. And remember, you are never too old to fight for what matters.